Did you know that thriving, fruitful community is how God intended for humankind to live? Today we're going to be talking about how God intended for us to live in community and not in this independent, individualistic, selfish world. Alright, we are back. Welcome to part 2 of Jennie Allen's Find Your People study guide or Bible study. Today I'm here with my husband, Juan Ava. Hey, babe.
What's up?
Thank you for being here and doing this with me.
Of course.
I feel like we had been gone for almost a month, it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like doing them by myself. I feel like I need you for us to have that conversation. Alright, so in the last episode we talked about the importance of community, how God himself lives in community, and how he intended for us to live in community as well, how we all need each other. And in this episode we'll be going a little bit more in depth of how to do that. So, one of the things she says, she talks about 5 different ways that life was in the Garden of Eden. 5 different ways that life was lived in the Garden of Eden. And the first one is proximity. So, they enjoyed physical closeness to each other and to God. So, we talked about in the last episode how finding people who live at least within 5 miles of you is so important, and why. And proximity does make you closer. Even like at work, sometimes when you work with the same people, I had a job where I was working 7/12s. So that's literally every day. I was supposed to spending 12 hours with these people every single day for almost a year. And they became the people who I would ask for advice. They would make me laugh. I would confide in them. I would even fight with them sometimes, because that's what happens. That's what happens when you're in proximity. It's all the good and the bad. It's all in there, but the good does overcome it outweighs the bad. And we were in Iconics too, so it was like 12 hours every single day with those same 4 to 5 people, and you just get close.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be some days where you're gonna fight, and it's okay. You're gonna get over it. Number 2 is transparency. So they were naked and unashamed, fully known and fully loved. So I'm not telling you to go out there and get naked, but opening up. We talked about this in the last episode as well. As women, we usually connect more when we're vulnerable with each other, when we share emotional things. Men get closer when they go through things together.
Yeah. Experiences.
Yeah, just being transparent with each other instead of trying to put up a front or pretend like everything's okay, because you can't build that intimacy with someone if you're just pretending that everything's okay and nothing ever goes wrong. Because like we said, we need to need them and they need to need us. Accountability. They lived under submission to God and to each other. So in today's world, accountability partners, so important. There's times where we get caught up in certain things and we don't make time, or we're just like, I don't have anyone to answer to, so I'm just not going to. And I feel like that's part of iron sharpens iron as well. As I'm coaching now, I see that a lot, because sometimes the client knows what to do, but they just don't do it because they're not being held accountable. And then, you come in and you're like, hey, this is what you're going to do. I need you to do it by this time. And they'll usually do it because now it's not that they're letting themselves down if they don't do it, but now they're letting you down. Same with working out, a workout partner. You are more likely to show up to the gym or show up and get a workout in if you know somebody's waiting for you. Versus you're like, I can just hit snooze. And I feel like that's been me during the pregnancy. Because, yes, I'm pregnant. Yes, I get tired. But when my cousin started coming over and we're like, okay, we're going to work out 3 days out of the week, I would actually make myself do it. Versus when she's like, she was out of town this week, I only worked out once.
It's not even having somebody you answer to. It's having somebody that you just don't want to let down, like you said. And you're that for somebody else too, whether you realize it or not.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then next is a shared purpose. They were given a clear calling to care for creation. So having a shared purpose with someone is very important as well. That's how work gets done.
Mm-hmm.
You go to work, you each have a purpose, or you have a shared purpose and you each do your thing. Same with family, marriage. You're like, we have a shared purpose. These are our goals, and we're going to work towards our goals together. And then we have consistency. They couldn't quit each other. They needed each other and shared everything together. So, going back to what I mentioned earlier, consistency and accountability, I feel go hand in hand.
Yeah, for sure. I think before that, how you were saying like the roles, it made me think about like you always hear the hunter and the gatherer, and they always work together, right? And that can be literally, or that can also be metaphorically. A lot of times, I'm saying in a standard household, the way it should be,
I was thinking the same thing.
The man goes out and he works and provides the income for the wife to be able to get the food and make the food. He eats it, she eats it, but it was both of their roles. And yes, the guy can cook and the woman can make money too. You're gonna bore me arguing me with those details. In the standard way, it is. That's normally how it would be, and that's a, if that role works out that way, you get a great outcome. But it was because they did their roles.
Yeah, and a lot of people argue about gender roles.
Yeah.
But they're there for a reason. It's like as women, we're naturally good at certain things. As men, they're naturally good at certain things. The man was specifically designed to carry more stress than us. Like, it's who we are and it's how we're designed. So people who try to fight that is like...
We'll let y'all keep fighting. Jesus said, don't argue fully with fully, so...
Yeah, so don't argue with fools. No, but but a lot of people are like, but I can make money too, or I can do this too. And it's like, nobody's saying you can't. It's not that you can't. It's just like, if you're part of a team, let's use baseball for example. You have the pitcher and the catcher. Like, why would you try to... Like, if one's really good at pitching and one's really good at catching, do y'all need to be switching back and forth?
Yeah.
And there's going to be times... Sorry. I was just going to say, there's going to be times where he's going to need help, and there's going to be times where you're going to need help, and that's perfectly fine. But I think it's... to me, it's funny, like, when I see, especially, like, videos on social media, and women are mad about it, and they're like, I can do it too, and it's like, yeah, you can. But if you can split it up as a team, why would you not want to do that? You were going to say something.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave it at this. If both people work and make income and they help support the family, if that's what's needed, whatever, my advice, and the only advice I'll give on that is do that if it's needed, or if you're trying to figure out when it starts affecting the dynamic of the household because the other person, both people are working, when it starts affecting the kids because I grew up in it and I experienced it, when that starts happening, things need to be reevaluated. If you're not making money but you're saving money, it's like if you're making money. So when it starts affecting the household, the house, which means the people in the house, not just the way the condition, I mean, even the condition of the house not getting clean, if food's not getting cooked, and the kids aren't getting looked after properly, if kids are involved, that's when the things need to change. When they're single or when they're together and there's no kid involved, if they want to work and all that, that's fine. Even then, if it starts affecting the household, that's when things need to change. And that's where I'll leave that.
Yeah, and I'll bring up Proverbs 31 woman, because she's like the example in the Bible of how a woman is. So her husband is some rich politician, judge, something. He's respected in the city. He's out there with the elders making decisions. And it talks about her, how she wakes up early. She's like a super hard worker. So we're not telling women not to work, okay? Like, just want to make that clear. Because I feel like there's a lot of different narratives out there. She gets up early, and the first thing she does is she makes sure that her house is taken care of. It says that she feeds her children and her servants. And then after that, she goes on and she does business. She buys land. She sells clothes. She comes home. She's making clothes for her kids. She saves money because she laughs at the future. So she's like super smart, hardworking woman.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't us telling you do not go to work, stay at home. No. This is us telling you make sure your house is a priority. And as a woman, you have certain talents and gifts that you are born with that you can do better than your husband can. And your husband is born with natural gifts and talents that he can do better than you can. So just respect that. And then just come together as a team, figure out what works for you, and we'll leave it at that. Again, we're going to go back to what we said at the last episode. People will disappoint you, but God will never disappoint you. So never put your trust in people. Never give people the role that belongs to God. So make sure that you always keep that in mind. All right, so chapter 4 talks about it will take deliberate intention to return to the kinds of relationships that God had in mind for us to enjoy. Meaning, going back to what we just said, well, I think it was on the last one, initiating, being the one to reach out. It's going to take effort. It's not going to come naturally. But she says some things to look for while looking for your inner circle, which is 2 to 5 people, would be availability. Look for people who say yes and show up. That's huge. Humility. Look for people willing to say hard things and receive hard things. So sometimes you need people to call you out on your BS. Sometimes you're straying. Sometimes you're not being held accountable. You need someone who's not scared to tell you. And when they need to hear it from you, they know how to take it. They won't get their feelings hurt or become resentful.
What did you read in the beginning of that?
Humility. Look for people willing to say hard things and receive hard things. Availability.
Before that?
When looking for your inner circle, look for these things. Before that, it will take deliberate intention to return. That. Okay.
So you can edit this part, but that with taking deliberate intention for that outcome, the community and all that, it doesn't just happen. It made me think of how everybody, you always hear these older couples that were been married for 40 years or whatever. I just think about Ice Cube talking about his wife when he was on that podcast. Yeah. And it's like, because they wanted to be married is what he said. He's like, we want to be married. He's like, he's like, that's my woman. I'm her man. I don't want nobody else with my woman. And it's the same way. It's like you want to do that. You make deliberate actions. You're involved in it. You're tending to it. You're taking care of it. You're watering it. You're nourishing it. Mm-hmm. And that's the same way that it should be to community. Yes, God's first, then your marriage, kids, community. Mm-hmm. If it's in that order and you're able to do all those things, that's if you ask me, that sounds like a great life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's having your priorities straight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up marriage because I always have something to say when it comes to marriage. When people say, oh, the love died, that's the biggest lie you could ever say. Let me tell you, I told you this before. I'm going to tell you again. Love is not a feeling. Love is an action. Mm-hmm. So if you want to be married, you will be married. It's as simple as that. Do you actually want it? Or are you waking up every morning and being like, oh, well, let's see how I feel today. Let's see if I feel like being in love. Let's see if I feel like being married. Let's see if I feel like being faithful. No. You wake up and you're like, this is what I'm choosing. I'm choosing to be married and to stay married.
Yeah. The person who does the let's see sounds like a broke, unsuccessful, they're not dependable, untrustworthy person. is what it sounds like. If you're just going to go, let's see, or how do I feel? I don't feel like going to work half the time. I don't feel like coming home and doing a lot of things that I do because I'm tired from work. There's a lot of things you're going to do that you don't feel like doing, but you do them because you need to, and because there's things that are, those things directly correlate to the things that are important to you.
Yeah, and you just have to decide. Just make that decision. Like, for example, I'll use cleaning as an example. I don't like to clean. I feel like it's a waste of my time. I could be learning something. I could be studying. But I made this decision. We just had somebody come in and do a deep cleaning, and it just felt so nice. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to make the decision that I want to live in a very clean house. So now I intentionally, try to be better about picking up after myself. Instead of being like, oh, I'll get it later, I'm like, no, I need to get it right now. And we've been keeping the house clean. It's intentional. It's not like, oh, it just, my love for a clean house just died. No.
Yeah. Or I think this might relate to people. Think about when you started a job. You're excited. You had a fire under you. That fire goes out as soon as it becomes redundant and you're doing it all the time and it interferes with doing some of the things that you want to do. You don't just say, oh, I lost my job. The job died. The job died. No. You stopped. If you didn't go and you got fired, then that's why, because you didn't put in the effort.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's relatable to people.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Very true. All right. Okay, so then we talked about transparency. Look for someone who refuses to hide, people who will say what's really going on in their lives. So how we talked about being open, admitting that you need them. That's important.
Yeah.
And then it says, pray for this and to become this. So pray for people like this, who are like this, and then also pray that you yourself will become this person.
Yeah, one of the prayers, part of the thing I always ask, and I think it's one of my daily prayers, is let us be a blessing to the people around us the way they've been a blessing to us. And that doesn't mean just the people who have blessed us, but that means everybody we come in contact with.
Yeah, I love that. I love also how whenever you pray for a marriage, that we may be an example to other people. And I love that you pray that so much, because people literally have told us. Like, we see what you have in your marriage, and it has motivated us, or it has changed us, or it has inspired us. And it's like, I know I've said this before, but how powerful prayer is. Because it's not us, it's God.
Absolutely.
Because if we weren't praying that, we wouldn't be living that way, probably.
Yeah, I mean,
we talked about being intentional, but God's...
Absolutely. Because there's so much reasons, if we were like, oh, based on this, based on that, there's so much reasons from before we ever knew each other, from our growing up, that we could, I don't want to say default to, but we can be like, oh, it's because I had a hard childhood. Suck it up. Like, grow as a person. Yeah, we've been hugely blessed, and we're aware of that too. We don't ever take that for granted, and we glorify God in everything we do. So I think, yeah, it's 100%. It's God, and it's us being aware of God in our lives, so that we keep glorifying Him and keep giving more to Him, and He gives unto us.
And I always go back to that Bible verse that says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and everything else will be added onto you." So as long as you are making God a priority, everything else does fall into place. And it's amazing how that works, because now that I'm starting to do coaching and counseling, and I have people come to me and tell me certain things, and it's like, are you making God a priority? Because if you were, this wouldn't be happening. And it's so heartbreaking for me when people are like, I don't want anything to do with God right now. And I'm just like, I can't help you then. I can't. This episode was sponsored by the Injury Paralegal with Adam and Garza Law Firm. If you guys are ever in an accident, they are the people to call. I personally used them whenever I was in an accident. And throughout the whole process, they always made me feel like family, like my health was their priority. And they were able to get me a settlement that I was happy with. So if you guys are ever in this situation, I recommend you save her phone number. I'll share it on the screen. Go follow her on Instagram, the Injury Paralegal, and just have this information on you, because you just never know. Hopefully nothing ever happens. But at least that way, for example, when it happened to me, I had the adrenaline going. This had never happened to me. I wasn't sure what to do. I called Monse, and then she guided me throughout the whole process. They also speak Spanish, so if you or a family member doesn't speak English, you guys can also give them a call. You can try to do whatever you can with your own human strength, but if you don't want to let God in, it's never going to be what you want it to be.
Yeah. And I think you can help them. And you help them by realizing that they need God. Even though they're saying they don't want anything to do with God, that the relationship, the people through the camera don't get to experience, they don't get the same experience as when people interact with you directly. Because anybody and everybody in our lives that comes across and gets to talk to you always says how humble you are, how kind you are, that you have a beautiful soul and beautiful heart. And that's God in you. That's God, and I'm aware of that. And I know I'm freaking blessed. Like, I have a beautiful, amazing wife. She's the best thing in the whole wide world. But I'm not unaware of that. That's why I also work to be the man that I am, and to be even better, especially like with our baby on the way. It just amplifies that, and I want to make sure I'm the example for it. But you can still help those people because they get to interact with you. They're getting an indirect, but still at the same time direct line with God, and they don't even know that yet. They're getting an experience with God through you because God's using you in their lives for a reason. So you can help those people. I just wanted to say that.
Oh, thank you. You're so sweet. I love you so much.
I love you.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah, because I'm still listening to them. You know, I'm not like cutting them off and being like, nope, can't talk to you.
Zoom call ended.
No, I'm still there. I'm still listening. I'm still trying to, say what I can.
Yeah. But it's not, you were right on the fact that you can't help them. God's going to help them, but using you. That's what it is.
I agree. And I do pray for these people. Like, we'll get off the call and I'll be like, God, I can't do anything, but you can. Please take over.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very sweet. Thank you. Okay, so now we're at it says identify your 5. So then she lists 5 different things as an experiment. So when you're identifying your 5, it says proximity. Who do you see the most often and where? And then she says there's always going to be a barrier with each of the things that she lists. So for example, the barrier for proximity is busyness. And we can relate to this with our neighbor. How close are we? Super close. Proximity. Yeah, right behind us. Excuse me. Why have we not met him? Because we're busy. So be aware of that. And then she talks about building a fire, which we've talked about, doing like a little, building something outside in our backyard. And she's like, people get the closest when they sit around a fire and just talk. And that's on our...
I'm just going to start the fence on fire. So it might not be a good...
That's not what I mean by fire.
I don't know if it's going to be a good conversation. We're going to talk.
And then a bonfire.
I'll be big.
But that's something that we've talked about building. And,
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to when we do that. So transparency, open doors. A barrier for that might be pain or shame. People may not want to open up because they feel shame. Who can you most truly be yourself with? So try to identify that. Who's not going to judge you? Who's going to be there to like actually listen and try to help? The next one is accountability to others. Who has permission to get onto you when you need it? And then the barrier for that would be pride. You need to not be so prideful that when people get onto you, you get upset. Obviously there's ways to word things and say certain things, but you want people around you who will tell you how it is versus trying to sugarcoat, or I'm going to just cheer you on as you jump off that cliff. Those are the kind of people you don't want.
Yeah.
A shared purpose. Who is already working beside you? And then the barrier for that would be shallow or small talk. Just not letting people in.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is consistency. How do we commit to spending time with each other? And then the barrier would be conflict. So again, we need to understand that sometimes conflict is good. Sometimes conflict builds character. Sometimes conflict is necessary. And obviously, you don't want to be fighting all the time, but there are moments where conflict is necessary to make things better. All right, so now we're at chapter 5. It says, if you are trying to make friendships an addendum to your busy schedule, it will never work. So we talked about this earlier. So it says, notice who is already in front of you. Put yourself out there and be the one to initiate and start great conversations. So how we talked about how there are different people and how we need different people in our lives. She talks about different types of people. So she mentions the sage, and this is the one that I identify with. It says the friend who listens, prays, and advises. So that's one person you might want in your life. Another one is the encourager, the cheerleader who believes in you. Another one is the foxhole friend, the friend who gets their hands dirty with you. The one who's always there, you can count on to come help you do stuff. The challenger, the friend who isn't afraid to tell you the truth. The one who's going to keep you accountable. The fun one, the one who is funny and spontaneous. That's how you talked about how those people make your life better as well. And then the planner, this one you identify with, the organized and thoughtful friend. Would you say you identify as that one?
No.
You're not the organizer?
Not the way that describes it there.
Which one did you identify with?
The foxhole and then something after it too.
You're right. Yeah.
Those two. That one and the one
and
after.
The challenger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you're the challenger. For sure.
When I think of the planner one, it sounded like Michelle. Michelle or Sadae would be that.
Yeah. Yeah, they like to plan stuff and they're very organized.
They're thoughtful in it is the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like how Michelle did the cards for the Friendsgiving.
Yeah.
And I think we leave from Sadae and Gabriel's with something every single time. Because she's always like, I thought of y'all about this or that.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. And even, I don't know why I didn't go to that one, the challenger. That's literally your disc personality. But yeah, so obviously you don't have to like go and interviewing people and be like, are you this? Because I'm missing this one.
You're going to hold interviews for your friend group?
You know what? We already got a cheerleader. We need a planner. You can't be a part of our group.
Or we're going to have to kick out the planner we had before. So you're going to have to figure this out.
So we need a replacement.
No, I'm saying if they come in and they're the planner. Yeah. They're like, hey, you might be a better planner than the other planner we have.
Yeah, no, but it's just something for you to be aware of and be like, these are good people to have in your circle. And just kind of identify them and be like, okay, I can expect this person to be my cheerleader. I can expect this person to be the fun one that I go out with. I can expect this person to be the one who I can go to when I need to be listened to and I need advice. Yeah,
and I think in a practical sense, the way to explain that is if we all have a friend that takes nothing serious. We all have a friend that they just laugh at the worst times and you're like, dude, shut up. And then there's times when, like, it's funny, right? And then when you're in those times, like, dude, shut up and just help me. You don't need that friend that's that personality there at the moment when you're trying to build something or finish something on a deadline. You need them when the deadline, like once you finish, right before the deadline, when the task is complete. But you need that foxhole person with you that's going to get in there and get dirty. They're going to be like, hey, what do we got to do? Come on, let's do it. You need that person when it's crunch time. When crunch time is done and you've gotten everything, then that person who takes nothing serious is going to come in and be like, yo, we're stressing over this or this and that, and make you laugh, because then that all goes away. So that's like a practical way that those friends come in.
Yeah.
And then the thoughtful person or the cheerleader will come in and be like, y'all did so good, this and that. vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that because I'm not the one to call if you want to go out partying. Like, I don't know how many times, like, we'll be like, hey, let's get turned up. And I'm like, I'm not your person. You got a problem? I'll listen. I ain't going nowhere. I'm not changing out of my pajamas.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, we experienced it not too long ago that somebody in our lives was like, oh, like they wanted to go get something, and they're like, they want to drink, and then you're like, I'm pregnant, and they're like, no, well, Juan. I'm like, dude, I don't drink anymore.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, okay. Like they didn't expect it.
Yeah.
But they're also the person who's like, they're the outgoing personality that's just wanting to have fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can be there for people in different ways. Like that person, if that person is going through something, that person's gonna need you to listen to him and give him good advice. But then he's also gonna need somebody else that wants to go out and distract him.
Mm-hmm.
And don't expect all of it from the same person. Like, understand different people have different roles in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And if the person tells you, I'm pregnant 100 times, not only is she pregnant, but she's also not, that's not her role in your life.
Yep.
I just think that's funny because it's like, why do I have to keep reminding people I'm pregnant?
I think it's because we're those others. We have people in our lives who are like, since how you're the sage or whatever, and then I'm the other one or two, that we have the funny people in our lives too, and that's why.
So they like associate us with all of it.
Well, it's the way that our comfort is, like, we can be home and just do things at home and just hang out together. And their thing is they want to go out, so they think everybody wants to go out. And when we're at home, we're like, why would you want to go out? Like, we built this house to have everything we want here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's why.
Yeah. But also, like, flipping the coin, we do need to also allow them to bring that into our lives.
Yeah, and we do that when we have them over.
Yeah.
When we do stuff at the house. We still are at the house, but we're allowing them, we're getting that community, we're in community, but, or even not just like we go out to eat or at the house, you know, they're getting to be their selves and we're getting to be ourselves too, and we're complimenting each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that goes back to, we all need each other.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will need you to call me and be like, hey, get out of the house. And I'll get out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Other times I'll be like, this is not the season. I'm pregnant right now and I'm tired. Alright. So, to what I just said, she says, no one can be your everything, but everyone has something to contribute.
Mm-hmm.
Very important. And it says, to have deeper conversations, we have to learn the art of asking more intentional questions. So, not keeping it shallow and just opening up. And then going back to what we talked about, make sure people know you need them. You don't need to tell, and we talked about this in a different episode, you don't need to tell everyone everything, but you need somebody that you can go to and talk to. Always make sure that you have someone that you can get stuff off your chest with.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, you will be as close to a friend as you are vulnerable with her. And I say with her. And then I put it in parenthesis, is it the same with men? Because whenever we were watching her last video on session 7, you were like, she sounds emotional. And I'm like, well, that's because she's a woman. That's how
No. You started trying to defend her and argue with her. And I was like, she's a woman.
Are you with her or with
me?
Oh.
You were for her.
Oh.
You were trying to argue for her. With me about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, she sounds emotional. She's a woman. But it's the way I said it. I was like, she sounds emotional. She's a woman. And then you're like, what? No, she's saying this. I was like, sounds emotional to me.
Yeah, and it was because...
Yeah, she's a woman.
Yeah, and we're more vulnerable. We're
emotional.
More emotional.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're at chapter 7, and it says, accountability makes us more effective, calls us to live better, and challenges us to reach higher. So it says, make sure that you are finding people who will sharpen you, and don't settle for nice, and don't surround yourself with mirrors. So don't surround yourself with people who just tell you what you want to hear, or people who are exactly like you. Because then how are you going to grow? Like, let's say you and I are introverts, and then we just surround ourselves with introverts. When are we ever going to go out?
I said nobody ever see each other.
Yeah. And I love this so much. It says, we don't need to counsel each other with human wisdom. We point to the Word of God, which is something that I'm learning as I'm doing my biblical counseling course. It's like, I can tell you what I think, I can give you my opinion, but at the end of the day, there is one truth, and we can find that truth in Scripture. So that's what I'm going to always refer you to.
Mm-hmm.
And I just read, because I'm reading a book about biblical counseling, and I thought it was a really good analogy. The author said, he used the example of 4 blind men, and they bump into an elephant's leg, and each one is like, oh, it's probably a wall. Oh, it's probably this. And it was like 4 different things that they thought it was. And then, because everybody gave their opinion from their perspective, and he's like, that's usually how it is when people try to give advice. They'll each just say whatever they think, but there is one truth, because we only see from one perspective, versus God sees it all, and there is one truth. Like, God would have been able to tell you, oh, it was an elephant's leg.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I liked it. All right, chapter 8 says, we mistakenly think friendship is about us. Very true. As members of the body of Christ, we are to love each other and God so well that other people want this love and want to follow Jesus. So it's not about us. It's about us bringing Jesus to other people the best way we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love this because I feel like for most of my teens and 20s, this is not the way I lived. I had never even thought about that. I, just like I said, selfish, thought it was about myself. Everything was about me. But we're growing, we're maturing. And then, going back to it being inconvenient, she talked to a pastor from the Middle East, and she said, why does it seem like other countries are more connected than people in the U.S.? And he said, because the West is all about individualism, convenience, and being comfortable, and discipleship is inconvenient, uncomfortable, and very messy. And this is true. We touched on it a little bit already. Chapter 9 says, conflict is part of healthy relationships in the right context. So we also talked about healthy conflict. It says, conflict is safe when you know you won't quit on each other. I think that's very important, because a lot of people are scared to bring things up because they're scared that that person's going to leave them. Whether it's a friend, a spouse, even a family member. So it's important for you to make sure that person knows that even if there is conflict, you don't plan on going anywhere. You plan on committing to them, staying there, and resolving that issue, and getting past it and getting better because of it.
Yeah. And I think on that, it's pretty big on your delivery, and just don't be like, hey, what the heck is your problem? Because then it sounds like you're just in conflict, and be like, whatever it is, it may be like, say you didn't show up for something, or you said something that it's not always the easiest, but if you were to come out and be like, yeah, that wasn't cool, that you're going to come through, you're my boy, you're so-and-so, that you're going to be there, you didn't show up, and then you can have a legit reason you didn't show up, and just be like, dude, that's my bad, I messed up, this and that, blah, blah. Versus you just cut them off, or you just are like, nah, I can't even trust you, you don't even show up to this or that. So there's delivery will play a huge role in it. Checking that emotion and delivering it the right way, or even calling people out towards somebody else and be like, hey, come on, dude, that's not right. Versus like, hey, you
punk.
I have to check my words sometimes. Hey, you not so smart person.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and it says how to have healthy conflict. So, assume the best. You always want to assume the best because you want them to do the same for you. Keep short accounts. So like we said, speak on it as soon as you can instead of letting it build resentment. Be quick to apologize and aim to be a peacemaker. This episode was brought to you by BCN Supplements, our all-natural supplement company. And for our listeners, we do have a discount code if you visit our website, www.bcnsupps.com. You can use code BUILT, BUILT, for 10% off. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah. She gave a good example, and I think that's good for women. For men, I don't know if it's directly as relatable that somebody's going to have the conversation that way. When we did it, she says that her friend came to her and she was upset with her, and she told her, she's like, I care about you. I don't want to lose you. That's why I'm bringing this up to you. That's good for women, 100%. For the guys to say guys are going to come in off like that, unless, like, the guy will tell you that if you're his loved one or spouse. You good?
Yeah.
But
I'm just trying to get comfortable.
No, you're good. I don't see me, John, Rob, or any of them, or even Gabriel, being like, hey, I'm telling you because I love you and I don't want to lose you. I don't know if that's the way the conversation's going to go.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why I was like, it's more like, hey, dude, you're my boy. This happened. Oh, I didn't expect that from you. That's pretty, like, that's probably as vulnerable as it's going to get right there from a male's perspective. Between two males.
Yeah, it is different.
Yeah. So, I don't know if any guys even watch your channel or not, but just saying. Or even, like, women who are giving advice to that man, like how to go talk. Don't say, tell him I love you and I care about you, because this is... Don't expect a guy to go say that to another guy.
Yeah.
It's going to be different.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, though, because I feel like I need to have that conversation with someone, and I haven't. And I feel like that's a great way to do it. Like, hey, I love you. I don't want to lose you. Here's what's been bugging me. And here's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. I will have that conversation one day. Soon, yes. All right, so it says, according to Psychology Today, it takes 50 hours of interaction to move from acquaintance to casual friend, about 90 hours to move from casual friend to friend, and more than 200 hours to qualify as best friend. So a friendship takes time, a lot of time. So you got to spend time with these people.
We're going to make a lot of fires.
Safe ones. Yeah. And then the last part is just chapter 10 through 12, and I'll just summarize it real quickly. It says, finding your family. It says, so she talks about how consumerism also affected the whole community thing, because back then people used to share things and borrow things. We're like, hey, can I borrow your whatever, your toaster? I don't know. Do you have some sugar? And now it's like we buy everything ourselves. Sometimes we have two of each thing.
That's true.
Yeah. And it says, with family, you don't get to pick your people. They are in your life for a reason. It says, of course, sometimes you have to set up boundaries and distance yourself from certain people. So like we talked about, some people are in your life making your life difficult to make you better. And they're not doing it on purpose. It's just God was like, this person's going to sharpen you and help you grow. And you develop certain characteristics that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah.
But also, it might get to a point where you're like, I need distance from this person because it's just not working out. It says, if every believer on earth was united and of one mind on mission together, the church would be unbelievably dangerous. This reminds me of Marvel movies. Like, if we all came together on the same mission, how powerful and dangerous would we be? Versus everybody's like, well, I see things this way. Well, I think this. I
looked at it both ways. How you just said that, and then I also think of like Nazis. They all came together and believed one way and one thing.
Well, we're talking about God.
Yeah, I know.
No, but yeah. Yeah. And that's why they did so much bad, because they were united.
But in the wrong.
In the wrong.
Right.
But that's how being united with other people and sharing that one mission is so powerful. Like, whenever the hurricane in North Carolina, was it North Carolina? Hurricane Helene? Was that the name?
I believe so.
Yeah. The church, every time there's a disaster, the church will raise money. And I was like so, like in awe whenever the pastor said we raised $100,000 just for that cause. Not even
it was your fast regular. Too.
Yeah.
I think they announced it like 1 week and like 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks later. Or it's, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and it was, aside from regular tithing, it's like you go on there and it's a separate option that it gives you. Like, do you want to donate to the natural disaster? And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, when everybody comes together, like, the things that can be done.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
Yeah, I think we do get to see it a lot in our church. Finances, the community, the way it is, like, everybody working. The church's mission is to know Christ and make Christ known. And a church in Montana, I can't remember the name of that church.
It's something, I think it's, every time I hear the name, I think it's funny.
Yeah. I just can't remember what it is. But a church in Montana, they were going to be without a pastor for a while. But they had already been watching, some of the members and stuff had seen New Hope online. And New Hope basically became their pastor. Pastor Tim was basically their pastor through online. And like, how powerful is it that they were hearing God's word through like a humble servant, but a great leader in the church. That they had a great leader in their church because of online like that. And that was everybody coming together wanting to be on the same mission. Like, stuff was happening in Montana on the other side of the United States from us. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they helped them build their church. Now they have their own pastor.
Yep.
Yeah, so and God, Jesus said it. He's like, you will do greater things than what I've done. But we need to come together as a community of God in order to do those great things. And this is for another episode, but something that I've been working a lot on clients is stop relying on yourself and understand that the one who is within you is more powerful. That's who you need to be relying on. Not so much expecting. Because a lot of people will be like, oh, I'm scared. What if I fail? Well, who's your God? Who are you trusting?
Ooh, that's good.
But I can do a whole podcast on this topic. So I'll leave that for.
That'd be a good one for me.
Hey, I like it.
To chime in on.
Yeah. It's
something that I recently struggled with, and I think it took a song. It was church, and then I heard it in a song. By Phil Wickman, Battle Belongs. That I was like, damn. It's always stuff that I'm a very independent person, and said it on here plenty of times. But I always have reminders. Things always remind me to go back to it.
Yeah. That's actually going to be the next topic on the next podcast.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. All right. And then to close this one off, it says, beware of codependency. So, like we've said, relationships always go wrong when God is not in the center. So make sure that you are relying on God and then people second. Beware of independence. Beware of busyness. Beware of gossip, comparison, laziness, fear. Those things are all killers of community. It says, you may be isolating yourself from the very things God wants to use to help you grow. And then the last one is the intimacy of the few. And it says, we aren't meant to carry things by ourselves. And of course, we have the best friend ever, Jesus.
That's good.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you would like to add? No? All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope it was of blessing to you. Is that how you say it? It was a blessing to you? I hope that it served you in some way. If it did, let us know in the comments. Like it. Share it with someone who you think might need to hear this. And we'll see you guys on the next one.